What's up, everybody? It is the Dark Conservatarian, and already I have that stupid coronavirus flagging underneath my live stream right now. I was trying to avoid that, like I wasn't talking about any viruses, YouTube. Why you get on me for that? All I said was Corona. I was going to talk about beer.
Yeah, it's the beer, man. It's good beer.
Yeah, fairly decent. It's not as good as Dos Equis or Modelo, in my opinion, but it's all right. I don't hate it as much as I don't hate it like some other people do, anyways. But nonetheless, sarcasm aside, you all know, and apparently YouTube already knows what I'm going to be talking about. In spite of no tags and not even a single link down in the description box below of the actual virus itself, although I did say beer virus, the second word virus is probably what tipped them off, but nonetheless, it is what it is. I mean, what are you going to do about it? I mean, it hasn't crippled me that much in the views thus far, at least not relative to how my Strike Force news episodes do anyways. But nonetheless, yes, about coronavirus. You all have heard about how they are like flirting with a whole bunch of mandates and other government impositions upon the economy and the average American way of life. And even NIH Director Francis Collins calls for more vaccine mandates. And there was like even a clip that I heard get tossed around a little bit, talking about how Biden is going to start enforcing public sector workers, that includes military members, to all start taking the vaccine as well. Anything you want to say before we get into this article here, Loudmouth?
Vaccine-resistant lambda variant. Well, I mean, you had to have seen this coming. Of course, the virus was going to mutate.
Right. And I already pre-read this article just for you guys' information, by the way. So apparently there's this one other strain of the coronavirus that is popped up. It originated in Peru. Doesn't specify exactly what exactly it originated from. If it originated from somebody who did not take the vaccine, or if it somehow mutated from a person who was vaccinated anyways, or whatnot. It just said that it originated from Peru, and it just recently got into the U.S. I think they said something like 1,400 cases is what is so far reported as of the releasing of this article anyways. And the thing about it is that it is vaccine resistant, as thus the article says in the title and explains. But it isn't as contagious as coronavirus, let alone the Delta variant of the coronavirus anyways. So that's at least somewhat assuring, I guess, but nonetheless, this is probably just going to be another piece to be used as a wedge by all the pro-vax, and not even just pro-vax mandate people as to why that we should mandate a vaccine across the country, and so on and so forth. I actually heard of my coworker talking about a gamma variant that was supposed to be vaccine resistant. I wonder if he was actually meaning this, the
Lambda.
Yeah, lambda variant. But it doesn't matter. Either way, whatever we want to call it, apparently there is a vaccine-resistant strain that is out in the world now, and it's called lambda. So, enough about that, though. Okay, Night Shift's comment was already approved. And hello, by the way, everybody in the live chat. Red Feather, Rydex's Panarchist Kung Fu, Metal Doomer, Night Shift 10,000, and JC Armitage. How are you all doing today? But so this is an article actually that was shared by one of my Facebook friends, actually one of my family members, and when they shared this article, they actually got flagged down by Facebook for sharing it, funnily enough. So I just got wondering, what could it be possibly as to why that Facebook decided to try to take it down? And you know what Facebook told this Facebook friend of mine, by the way, Loudmouth?
What?
They said, we support free expression, but we don't want to... but we don't want to allow the spreading of misinformation.
What?
So,
that is some bullshit right there.
major bullshit. Not only that, it's also a contradictory statement in of itself. I mean, if you're truly pro free speech, pro free expression, well then that includes allowing people who are wrong to speak their opinions. You're saying?
You wouldn't be censoring people then.
Precisely.
Oh.
Isn't the solution to bad speech more speech? But no, not in Facebook and the rest of the Orwellians' opinions out there.
Freedom is slavery.
Right? Wait. Wasn't there? Who was it that made that quote, by the way?
George Orwell.
Oh, George Orwell. Okay, it was George Orwell. For some reason, I thought you might have possibly been quoting a YouTuber or other internet political personality who unironically actually believed that and said it.
Yeah, that was the three slogans of the Ingersoll Party in 1984. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength.
Right. So anyway, urgent British report calls for complete cessation of COVID injections in humans. Now, apparently, all the countries around the world, they have been running on different types of vaccines. China has their own variant of vaccine that is only like 70% effective for people as far as being resistant against coronavirus, whereas most of the vaccines here in the US are like 95% resistant. So there is differences right there. So we do not know if the UK is using the same type that we are, but nonetheless. A high number of people who took a COVID shot in the UK have reported experiencing harmful effects. This data is collected in an official database that is voluntary, much like the CDC's VAERS system in the US. These reporting systems exist to identify issues with vaccines which might not have been previously known about. A recent report issued by the UK-based evidence-based medicine consultancy Ltd calls for the UK version of the FDA to completely stop giving COVID vaccines to humans. Interesting. The report states that in 2021, between January 4th and May 26th, 1,253 deaths and 888,196 adverse reactions were reported. They broke these down into 6 main categories of adverse drug reactions. A. Bleeding, clotting, and is ischemic. Damn. Yeah, that is more than just like a slightly inconvenient momentary pain on your arm. Immune system, that's B right there. C, pain. D, neurological. E, ADRs involving loss of sight, hearing, speech, or smell. Well, holy shit. F, pregnancy ADRs. A, there were 13,766 bleeding, clotting, and ischemic reactions identified, 856 of which were fatal. B, a total of 54,870 reactions and 171 fatalities fell into the immune system category. Well, what the fuck? C, pain reactions accounted for at least 157,579 reactions in total. A large number of these were joint and muscle pains. Among congenital, how do you pronounce that, disorders, usually conditions present from birth. There were 11 reports of paroxysmal, I don't know. I'm just going to continue. Stop being dyslexic, Zach. Extreme pain disorder, which is an extremely rare inherited disease caused by a genetic mutation. D, an additional 185,474 were categorized as nervous system disorders. A wide variety of neurological issues were noted, including 1,992 involving seizures and 2,357 involving some form of paralysis, including 626 cases of Bell's palsy. There were 33 cases of dementia reported following injection. There were 4,771 reports of visual impairment, including blindness. 130 reports of speech impairment. 4,108 reports of taste impairment. 354 reports of olfactory impairment and 704 reports of hearing impairment. F. Given that vaccinated pregnant women comprise a small proportion of the vaccinated population at the time of this report, 307 appears to be a high number of pregnancy adverse drug reactions. This includes 1 maternal death, 12 stillbirths, and 150 spontaneous abortions. Well, what do you mean? Isn't that just... Wait. I guess that's just basically a miscarriage right there. 150.
Pretty much, yeah. That basically means a miscarriage.
Damn. That's sad. I wonder if, you know what, I gotta search this up. Like, how many people within the UK have been vaccinated? How many people in the UK have been vaccinated? Fully vaccinated is 39.6 million. So this is out of how many in total that have been vaccinated. Well, out of how many people that have had adverse reactions or deaths. So 800, almost 900,000 out of 39.6 million. That's a little bit too close for comfort. I mean, yeah, it is still a minority of the time. So I guess if you take this, there is still a good chance that you might not contract any severe reactions, side effects or whatever to the coronavirus vaccine. So if you want to take it yourself, go for it. But at the same time, that's still a little bit too high for comfort to where that I wouldn't blame anybody for one to refuse to take this vaccine, including a lot of us here on the within the Dark Conservatarian YouTube channel. The authors note that they... by the way, actually, I got a question, Loudmouth, if you're still there.
I'm here.
Have you taken the vaccine?
No, not yet. I'll probably get it when it's convenient.
All right.
I'm not anti-vax. I'm not against it. I just don't feel the need.
All right.
I'm not really at risk for this virus in any meaningful way.
Yep. Rydex's Panarchist Kung Fu says, what should we call this other loudmouth since we already had Gage the loudmouth? Well, this guy is called Loudmouth Reviews. We could just you could just call him Jim perhaps, I guess.
Yeah.
And call the other guy Gage the loudmouth just Gage. I mean, just to differentiate them. Hello there, Metal Minister in the live chat. Oh, I see. You were too busy to talk with me, but you had time to live stream. Oh, well, just kidding, just kidding. I understand, Metal Minister. I mean, you said that in the Discord server anyways. But I will get to you talking to you about the last conversation that I had with Aircraft Sparky sometime eventually. Just you wait. T. Douglas McIntosh asks, I just got here. What's going on? Oh, we're talking about adverse effects that the UK has, that the UK population has experienced from taking the vaccine. The authors note that they understand that information on reported adverse drug reactions should not be interpreted as meaning that the medicine in question generally causes the observed effect or is unsafe to use. We are sharing this preliminary report due to the urgent need to communicate information that should lead to cessation of the vaccination rollout while a full investigation is conducted. So they're not even sharing this information in a, for lack of better wording, in a sort of anti-coronavirus vax agenda or anything like that. They're just showing it out there for the sake of the truth, for knowing the truth. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. The authors of the report also refer to a recent paper by Senef and Nye that shows potential acute and long-term pathologies from COVID injections include pathogenic priming, multi-system inflammatory disease, and autoimmunity, allergic reactions, and anaphylaxis, antibody-dependent enhancement, activation of latent viral infections, neurodegeneration and prion diseases, emergence of novel variants of SARS-CoV-2, integration of the spike protein gene into the human DNA. The striking point here is that vaccine-induced harms are mediated through the vaccine spike protein. It is now apparent that these products in the bloodstream, are toxic to humans. This is why evidence-based medicine consultancy Ltd is urgently calling for an immediate halt to the vaccination program, while a full and independent safety analysis is undertaken to investigate the full extent of the harms. The UK data suggests the harms include thromboembolism, multi-system inflammatory disease, immune suppression, autoimmunity, and anaphylaxis, as well as antibody-dependent enhancement, ADE. Right, Metal Minister says in the chat, and suddenly DarkCon's channel disappeared after talking about the coof. Yeah, because everybody knows that I am just pulling disinformation from a right-wing conspiracy kook website, right, y'all? Apparently, according to Facebook, as I said at the beginning of this, this is right-wing disinformation kookery right here. Even though it seems to be a very, very unbiased source, and like I said earlier, is not having a bias against a coronavirus vaccine in the first place. Just wants to present the stats, the facts out there.
I heard that the coronavirus vaccine causes you to become the wolf man. So I guess I'm spreading misinformation.
Damn it, Loudmouth, why do you have to get my channel taken down? Stop it. For future reference, it's pronounced anaphylaxis. All right.
Anaphylaxis.
Thanks for the information right there, Middle Minister. So, speaking of vaccines, we have NIH Director Francis Collins calling for more vaccine mandates. Which this is kind of confusing to me because I thought that Anthony Fauci was the NIH director. What is Anthony Fauci again? Loudmouth, do you know?
He's the CDC director.
I thought he was the CDC director for a while as well, but I don't know. I think that might be some other guy. Let me look that up very quickly here. So. Anthony Fauci. I'll probably show it very quickly. Anthony Stephen Fauci is an American physician, scientist, and immunologist serving as the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and the chief medical advisor to the president. Okay, so never mind. It's a different third organization in regards to health.
Did he used to be a CDC director? I thought I remember saying that he was once one. Damn it.
Maybe. I don't know. I think I recall that from the Ben Shapiro show, like sometime back in the early half of 2020, that Donald Trump had fired Anthony Fauci from some position. It might be from the CDC director position. Who knows? And hello there, Cat Chat in the chat. Metal Minister says, who cares? Fauci was the same idiot that scared the hell out of America when told that everyone, millions would die from HIV from causal contact. Yeah, I vaguely heard about that. I have to look more into the details about that myself, Metal Minister, but I'll take your word for it for right now. Anyway, National Institutes of Health Director Francis Collins urged the United States to adopt more vaccine mandates on Sunday, and he said he celebrates businesses requiring the shots. When asked on a segment of ABC's This Week if it is time for more compulsory COVID-19 dose policies, the medical expert said, yeah, I think we ought to use every public health tool we can when people are dying. Death rates are starting up again. Yeah, being a complete totalitarian, this guy is. By the way, if y'all are appreciating the commentary and content being presented thus far, don't forget to hit that like button down below. It'll help in the algorithm, especially since this live stream got the coronavirus flagging down there below the browser, as you can see. Well, that's an obviously hot topic for me as a non-political person, as a physician, as a scientist, Collins added. The compelling case for vaccines for everybody is right there in front of you. Just look at the data. Certainly, I celebrate when I see businesses decide that they're going to mandate that for their employees. Okay, well, if you want to be a big-time virtue signaling dick that way, well, then go ahead. Obviously, that's your free speech. and businesses, I still do believe, have the right to mandate vaccines for their employees if they really want to, or else fire them.
I
But
don't agree. I don't think businesses should have any right to regulate the private health care of any employee.
what about do they have the right to fire them if they don't get vaccinated?
And I'd say unless you could like prove that doing so made the employee a danger, which I don't think. I don't think that does. No,
Okay.
that's. I used to think otherwise. I used to be a libertarian. I'm not anymore.
Okay, well, maybe this is me taking my libertarianism to a little bit more of an absolutist position. But as far as vaccine mandates, this guy is implying government policy, and that's where I have a definite middle finger for this guy to be
Oh
shown to
yeah,
him.
that is definitely much more outrageous. Yeah, because yeah, I think it was someone else made a point about this. If you can mandate a vaccine, how can you really make an argument against forcing people to donate blood? So I mean, you could argue, hey, someone
Hmm.
else's need to live overrides your right to convenience. So like blood donations should be made mandatory.
Right.
Yeah, we've kind of had the view that bodily autonomy is so strong that it supersedes everything. What
Yeah,
and it's
including fetus's right to
definitely going
life.
against that,
Sorry, what?
and vaccine mandates definitely go against that.
Right.
And being someone who's hesitant about this particular vaccine does not necessarily make someone an anti-vaxxer, because people may have specific concerns about this vaccine, not vaccines in general.
Right. Mel Minister says in the chat, where's all the leftists claiming my body, my choice now?
Exactly,
Exactly.
as I was saying.
As the memes are being shared around on Facebook and I guess Twitter as well, espousing that logic of how it's ironic. Collins praised the July 29 order from President Joe Biden, which stipulated that all federal employees must be fully vaccinated or be subject to frequent testing. Okay, so I guess that so far it seems that federal workers at least do have an option. If they really feel so antsy about the vaccine, then they'll have the annoyance of being tested, but
Well, I
still.
definitely in that position just get the damn vaccine just because why not? I just don't like the idea that an employer can like peer into people's private medical history like that. It sets a bad precedent.
Hmm.
That's just my view on it.
All right. Maybe there's a further conversation to be had on that front.
Right.
But anyway, the directive applies to the Department of Defense and all active duty military personnel, among others. I'm glad to see the president insisting that we go forward requiring vaccinations, or if people are unwilling to do that, then regular testing at least once or twice a week, which will be very inconvenient, he said. Earlier in the week, Collins raised eyebrows when he suggested that fully inoculated parents should wear masks inside their homes among non-vaccinated children under the age of 12. He later walked back his comments and insisted parents should be donning face coverings in public indoor settings in certain areas. Oh, brother. You're really making those vaccines look good and effective, y'all. Not. Why mandate people who are already vaccinated when they're around these people, these kids that are very lowly susceptible to suffer greatly from coronavirus? Why mandate the fully vaccinated adults to be masks when they're, like I said, fully vaccinated? If the vaccine works so effectively, this doesn't make any sense. Oh, earlier. Wait, no, I already read that. Let me clarify the masking message that I garbled on this morning on CNN. Collins wrote in a tweet on Tuesday afternoon. Vaccinated parents who live in communities with high COVID transmission rates should mask when out in public indoor settings to minimize risks to their unvaccinated kids. No need to mask at home. I got a question, Loudmouth. What do you know about this? I mean, can somebody who's like fully vaccinated and is resistant to the virus themselves still like contract, I don't know, some strain of it that they can pass on to people who are not vaccinated and get them sick whilst they themselves remain fully healthy?
It's possible, but I don't know how likely it is. I mean, with a virus, of course, any strange mutation can happen. I'm totally neutral on that. I don't think I have the expertise to make any claims.
All right. Um, I just know that you like to be, or not just like to be, but are well read on a whole lot of these important issues, and so I was just wondering.
Yeah, it doesn't mean I know everything.
Right.
Sometimes we'll just say I don't know.
JC Armitage says making someone's life as miserable and inconvenient as possible until they get the jab. That's effectively a mandate by any other name. Have any of you seen some of Eric July's recent videos talking about the effectiveness of the Kovacs? No, I have not. And you know, maybe I should actually subscribe to Eric July, Young Ripa 59. I mean, whenever I have watched his videos, I like them. Like whenever a subscriber or other internet compatriot of mine would share their videos to me, or just in general, I'd always watch them and I'd be quite intrigued. Actually, I'm surprised that I haven't subscribed already. What am I doing with my life? Anyway, numerous businesses, local governments, and other entities have reimposed face covering requirements and have begun to require vaccinations after a rise in coronavirus cases throughout the U.S. stemming from the Delta variant. I mean, the vaccine is being shown to be effective against the Delta variant so people do not get sick from it. If you're so freaking scared of the coronavirus yourself, just take the vaccine. Anyone else who wants to take the risk, let them take the risk. Why are you...
It's your body, your choice. If you want to take the risk for some reason or another, you should have the right to.
Yeah, precisely. And all the people who want to say... be acting like that if you get sick you are also inadvertently violating another person's health, or whatever logic they want to pull out there. It doesn't even work right nowadays, now that we have a at least presumably effective vaccine against the virus. So again, refer to what I said earlier and what Limon said too. In one of the most drastic policy shifts, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announced last Tuesday that restaurants and gyms will require inoculation documentation in the boroughs as part of the Key to New York City Pass, which will launch on August 16.
Key to New York City? What a jip. There's no door to New York City.
I don't know. The quote, Key to NYC Pass, unquote. I wonder, is that supposed to be like some fancy term for a vaccine passport?
Yeah, probably.
Ugh. Fuck out of here. Fuck out of here with that, dare I say it, Nazi-esque sort of bullshit. Over the last 2 weeks, the U.S. has seen a 111% rise in cases, an 84% jump in hospitalizations, and an 89% increase in virus-related deaths. A total of 50% of the country's population is fully vaccinated, and last week, the Biden administration hit a milestone with 70% of the adult population having received shots. So let the minority of people who want to take the risk take the risk. I mean, why be such a nanny state? And I guess since we're on the topic of vaccines, as this whole topic, this whole live stream no shit is about, let me see if I can pull it up right here. So a few episodes ago, I just want to say very quickly, I had mentioned of how the active cases seem to be on the downtrend. And that was on an episode when we were last talking about the Delta variant. The active cases seem to be on the downtrend. Yeah. Few days later, on myself. They have been
active cases may be going up, but are hospitalizations and deaths going up? So if it's just cases, where people can get the sniffles, it's not really that big of a deal.
Total deaths, daily deaths haven't gone up a whole lot, honestly.
Yeah, seems like they're still down.
They've been like around the 300 range at the lowest point of early this year throughout the mid to early summer, and now it's like creeping up to around the 500 range. So it's still relatively low. I mean, you know what? Now that I think about it, that scary 84% or 89% increase in virus-related deaths seems scary on the surface, but if you look at the raw numbers and you compare that definitely per capita within the US, it's still a low number in the ultimatum of things. I mean, I don't mean to downplay those deaths. If you have somebody who died of the coronavirus, my condolences to you. I'm just looking at the bigger picture here in order to make a judgment call as to whether or not that we should start, I don't know, freaking out in every single aspect of life like the bubonic plague has come back to haunt us. I mean, it definitely does not compare in any shape or form to last winter where we were experiencing daily deaths around the 4,000 range. So, right. Again, that 89% figure right there might seem scary on the surface, but let's keep things in perspective. As far as hospitalizations go, I'm trying to see if this worldometers.com thing goes mentioning hospitalizations. I don't think it does, actually, now that I am trying to scroll through this. So we have total cases, daily new cases, active cases, total deaths, daily deaths, and it brings up another chart that is talking about cases by the biggest states. Patients under investigation in the United States. So no, this particular article that I am using to track the numbers right here doesn't mention hospitalizations, unfortunately. But the one Washington Examiner article here did say that there's, at least supposedly, an 84% jump in hospitalizations. Which actually, that might well be true, but again, compared to what beforehand? In all fairness. So, this is from Forbes magazine. What the CDC isn't telling you about masks is terrifying. Now, I haven't read the full article here, but when I gone peeking into this guy seems to be, it would seem, at least on the surface, at first, this guy is taking a rather anti-CDC and anti-lockdown approach. But no, this guy is having a lockdown sympathetic approach as far as the CDC, thinking that the CDC isn't being strenuous enough in regards to their cautioning of the populace and whatnot. So, getting into it. Responding to a 70% uptick in COVID-19 cases last month, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issued new public health guidance. The agency now advises vaccinated Americans to wear a mask indoors in public if you are in an area of substantial or high transmission in order to reduce the risk of being infected with the Delta variant and possibly spreading it to others. In defense of its recommendation, the CDC took to social media and asked, if vaccinated people can spread the virus, shouldn't everyone wear a mask? What is the science in all of this that vaccinated people can still ultimately spread the disease? It's weird and doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it's something that I ought to look more into right after this show. To mask or not to mask? Studies have shown that wearing a mask in public reduces transmission of the disease. In June, Axios Ipsos looked back at self-reported polling data from 2020 during the height of the pandemic and found just 11% of people who reported always wearing masks outside the home tested positive for COVID, compared to 23% of those who said they never wore masks. Well, that's not exactly high. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, you go fear-mongering that this virus is so deadly and, above all, so transmissible, and you'd almost expect that people who never wore masks would be much higher than 23%. So I gotta say, right off the surface, that sounds impressive right there. As far as how healthy ultimately the populace is in the grand scheme of things. So, oh yes, masks work, but the CDC's question isn't a solid defense of its new guidance. If anything, it's a red herring, a distraction from a far more relevant question about how to end the pandemic. As management guru Peter Drucker once noted, the most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said, and what the CDC isn't saying to the public is highly disconcerting. Okay, 1 second here. Alright, so, Loudmouth has just left us. Y'all, thank you for joining on and for your contribution as always, Loudmouth. Always fun to have you on. Triple Z status. Hello in the live chat, by the way. He gives me a cat in a box. Well, I sure do appreciate your present. I'll make sure to feed him and water him and let him roam around whenever he really feels the urge to, and I'll clean up his litter box. Thank you very much. What the CDC isn't telling us, if we were to follow the CDC's guidance and do nothing else, Americans would need to wear masks permanently. That's because masks won't end this pandemic, only herd immunity will. And you know what's another way of acquiring herd immunity is to just let everybody get the disease or get some strain of it to where they can build up the immunity naturally. So actually, I gotta ask. I gotta read this in the live chat here. T. Douglas McIntosh says, "Fun fact: the vast majority of deaths were of unhealthy people and elderly, the very same people we should have been focused protection on." And he says that's false. Like all respiratory viruses, the droplets are small enough to go through the mask. Yeah, which is I think the biggest reason as to why they say that. Okay, I'm just going to argue devil's advocate right here, T. Douglas McIntosh. The general argument that I have heard in regards of wearing masks is that it's meant to prevent yourself from spreading it to other people rather than other people contaminating you if you get breathed on. So, just for honesty's sake on my part anyways. Masking as a public health policy made sense in 2020 when there was no other effective way to prevent the spread of the disease, and when hospitals needed to buy time in order to keep enough ventilators and beds open. Excuse me. Today, there's a definitive solution that can end the pandemic. It's called a vaccine, and there are enough doses available to inoculate every eligible American right now. Although the CDC lacks the authority to pass laws or enforce mandates, it has an obligation as the nation's health protection agency to keep the public as safe as possible. They are falling short of that mission. What, are you saying that they are not advocating that people get vaccinated? I mean, as far as I know, they have. I don't know. I would think that the CDC would be advising that everybody take the vaccines. And if they aren't, maybe they're taking into account the possibility of adverse side effects like uticaphoenix.net here, the article on Britain that we read about earlier. Maybe they're taking in those side effects into account to say, if you don't want to get vaccinated, we understand your concern. So if you ultimately don't want to, go ahead and refrain. But nonetheless, what the CDC should have said and done. The only way to reach herd immunity and eliminate the virus is to achieve near universal vaccination. You know what? That's not the only way to achieve herd immunity, right? I have to look up again on the specifics of it, but another way to achieve herd immunity, in fact, the original definition of herd immunity, as far as I remember, was that everybody, or most people anyways, get some strain of the disease in the first place so that they naturally build up the immunity, rather than get manually, a manually built up immunity. Manually or artificially, rather. Artificially, that should be the word, probably. Therefore, to protect every American and save the most lives. The CDC should have given it its full endorsement to vaccine requirements in all public spaces and work sites. It should have urged the owners of restaurants, theaters, and sports venues to require proof of vaccination or a negative COVID-19 test within the past 72 hours to gain entry. Well, prepare for a whole lot of boycottings if you do that. Because I have a feeling that even people who have been vaccinated, people of conservative and libertarian mindsets will be all like, fuck your passports. Like, I got my vaccine. This just as an arbitrary example of somebody who was a conservative or a libertarian who did get vaccinated. I've got my vaccine. I mean, you're not going to take my word for it. Seriously? You're going to ask me to give out some fascistic or Nazi-esque kind of piece of paper to prove that? You're going to be like the SS and be all like, where's your papers now? It should have lent its unyielding support to the dozens of major businesses now requiring employees to be vaccinated before returning to the office, and to the hundreds of colleges and universities that issued the same requirements to students and staff returning to campus this fall. Ah, brother. Although the agency can't force others to follow suit, a call for mandatory vaccination from the CDC would have given businesses and government officials much needed regulatory and scientific support. Fuck that shit. You know what? You guys know that I give much credence to Forbes with their reporting of information, but not this guy. Not this guy, Robert Pearl, MD. This guy is like coming off as rather fascistic here, quite bluntly. We have to chat here a little bit more. JC Armitage says, another sign that the face diapers don't stop viruses, seeing the breath of people who are wearing them during the winter. I saw that from people dumb enough to willingly wear them. You know what? Fair point, JC. T. Douglas McIntosh says, I know, that was my point. The droplets come out of your mouth and out your mask. I think he was reciprocating what JC was saying. I don't know. It's all over the place. It's a freaking mess. My corona. Such a communication would have increased the likelihood that unvaccinated Americans would choose to become vaccinated. It would have helped protect vaccinated people and children under 12 who are not vaccine eligible. Wait. Such a communication would have increased the likelihood that unvaccinated Americans would choose to become vaccinated. It would have helped protect vaccinated people and children under 12 who are not vaccine eligible. If the vaccine is so freaking effective, well then, why should the vaccinated people be concerned anymore about getting it? Aside from lambda variant, I guess, but the lambda variant is not a majority of cases in this nation yet. So talking about things in the grand scheme of things, if you are vaccinated already, why should you be concerned? From becoming infected by reducing the number of active infections they'd encounter. It could have slowed yet another surge, reducing the chances that newly infected people would overwhelm hospitals and continue to strain an already exhausted medical workforce. And it may have accelerated a return to normal for everyone. Denying the truth doesn't change the facts. If the CDC were being 100% honest and transparent, its communication would have begun with an important fact. According to Kaiser Family Foundation research, almost all, more than 9 in 10, COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths have occurred among people who are unvaccinated or not yet fully vaccinated. You know, I don't think anybody, now that I think about this more and more, I don't even think that the more passionately anti-COVID-19 vaccine people have denied the effectiveness of the vaccines against the virus itself. I mean, there's a minority of them, fair enough, and I'm sure that I have at least one particular family member who comes to mind who is in outright denial of this. But overall, the people who are like being skeptical about these vaccines, even the people that go talking about the side effects of the vaccines, I don't think that they have been questioning the effectiveness against the virus itself from the vaccines. They've just been questioning, what are the side effects? But if they are, for those minority of people who are saying that the vaccine doesn't work at all, you are just like giving credence to their beliefs with what you're espousing here, sir. To be clear, the Delta variant isn't killing the vaccinated. Okay, and yet CDC's recommendation ignores the fact, putting the full... Wait. And yet CDC's recommendation ignores this fact. How? Cite the piece of text from the CDC that actually says this, because I do not know how much I buy into that assertion right there. Putting the full weight of responsibility on the shoulders of vaccinated Americans who've already done the responsible thing. Yes, masks do help slow the spread of COVID-19, and they remain vital in some situations. For example, until vaccines are approved for children under 12, Schools should require elementary and middle school students, teachers, and staff to wear masks for their protection. Similarly, hospitals and long-term nursing facilities that house people with compromised immunity should require masks too. How old is this article, by the way? It goes speaking as if people under the age of 12 are not allowed to get it yet. August 10, 2021. So this is a very new article. Actually, what am I talking about? Yeah, it was like front page of Forbes when I got this article right here. So I don't know what they are talking about until vaccines are approved for children under 12. Aren't they already approved for people under 12? This doesn't add up. Are vaccines approved for children under 12? U.S. urged to fast-track vaccine approval for children under 12 as cases rise. COVID vaccines for kids under 12 expected midwinter. Okay. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong in that assumption. I thought I heard something about... I thought I did hear something about how children under 12 are, in fact, approved and allowed to get the vaccine. But I guess I was wrong in my assumption, people. So please forgive me for that. Nonetheless, though, but masking doesn't offer a long-term protection or a long-term solution. And by failing to recommend mandatory vaccination, the CDC is confusing Americans and failing in its public health mission. You know what's also confusing Americans is mandating that people with who are vaccinated to get masked. I mean, this should be like simple 2 + 2 = 4 type shit here, folks. But I don't know. According to the elitists, COVID-19 elitists, if we want to call them that, ultimately, the CDC's new masking guidance is unlikely to make much difference in areas of the country with the highest rates of infection and lowest rates of vaccination. After all, elected leaders in many of these places, including Texas and Florida, oppose mask requirements. Yeah, because despite of whatever effectiveness you like to pull up about masks, ultimately it is an infringement on people's liberty to be mandating via government that everybody be masked indoors or outdoors or anywhere else for that matter. Private associations can mandate it if they want to, just like they mandate that people come in with shoes and a shirt, otherwise you don't get any service. But still, no government mandated mask mandates. That was redundant, but whatever. The good news is that even without CDC insistence, our nation has seen a recent jump vaccinations. Okay, well then what are you bitching about? You just went full circle and shot yourself in the foot, sir. However, current numbers continue to pale in comparison to the 3 to 4 million doses administered in the early months of the vaccine rollout. And with only 70% of Americans having received at least one shot, our nation remains way short of the number needed to reach herd immunity, which scientists now peg at 90% of the population, given the extremely high transmissibility of the Delta variant. At the present rate of vaccination, it would take approximately 4 months to reach even the 80% threshold. To get to 90%, the majority of vaccine-hesitant Americans will need to change their minds. Okay, so maybe I spoke a little bit too soon on saying this guy was being fascistic. He was kind of implying it a little bit earlier, but now he is saying the opposite. That, or at least implying the opposite. That I'm not going to call for mandates, but they need to change their minds. And there's little evidence that will happen without a national mandate. Today, 35% of American adults who have not yet received vaccines say they probably will not, and 45% say they definitely will not, according to a recent poll from the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research. Now, here's a recommendation of how that the CDC and all other COVID-19 elitists can do to get people to change their minds. You can stop recommending that people wear masks when they're vaccinated, and let the people who are ultimately unmasked and unvaccinated and uninterested to get vaccinated, once they get sick, they'll naturally change their own freaking minds. Just naturally, of their own volition. And possibly you can get to a 90% herd immunity, 90% vaccination rate, or whatever. Instead of calling for people who are vaccinated to keep on wearing their freaking masks. Or face diapers, rather. The CDC should be leading the effort to end this pandemic, not shying away from its responsibility. We can either mandate vaccination for the health of our nation, or we can deal with COVID-19 by wearing masks for years to come. Well, ultimately, as much as I hate having to wear masks, except for the aesthetic of the show, y'all. Just saying. As much as I hate wearing masks within a regular day-to-day activity, it's still preferable than risking my health by taking some vaccine that was kind of rushed in production and has some percentage of extreme side effects, as reported by Utica Phoenix here. That's the choice we face, but instead of acknowledging this and taking bold action to save lives, the CDC made a recommendation that was a day late and $1 short. More accurately, it was a month late and billions of dollars short, and that's nothing short of terrifying. You know what's billions of dollars short, or at least causing the economy to be billions of dollars short within its production? Is the fucking lockdowns. I mean, sure, the economy was going to take a hit anyways with more people getting sick and having to call off work and whatnot. No shit. But you know what hurt that even more? What hurt the economy even more is just telling people outright, is demanding or mandating people rather to stay at home and ultimately not go to work. So, probably just gonna read these two more articles right here, and then I'm going to end the possibly end the show right there, folks. I don't know, maybe I'll go for this third one. How many articles have I read? I pre-read this one and read 1, 2, 3, and this will make 4 and 5. Aircraft Sparky says you will gladly, or no, excuse me. You will gladly accept the government's edicts. I will gladly accept the government's edicts. You do it now. I'll do it now. Okay, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Anyway, the next article from Forbes, coming soon for the unvaccinated, a $50 monthly paycheck deduction from your employer. Now, let's see what bent this guy is coming from. The last guy, he was coming from a COVID pessimist and almost at some points implying a fascistic solution to things. But let's see what this guy has to say. If he's sympathetic to this idea of, cutting $50 from a person's monthly paycheck, or if he's against it, or goes arguing against it at least. He says, employers are beginning to tack on a special surcharge of $20 to $50 a month to their unvaccinated workers, according to one of the nation's largest health benefits consultancies. I'm gonna close down Facebook and Twitter right there. You might have heard the ping from my Facebook tab right there. But anyway, to date, employers have offered gift cards, a day off from work, cash, and other financial incentives to convince their workers to get vaccinated against COVID-19. But the carrot approach is about to be joined by a stick that could cost employees up to $50 a month, according to Mercer, the large employee benefits consultancy that works with thousands of employers around the world. Employers have tried encouraging employees to get vaccinated through offering incentives like paid time off and cash, but with the Delta variant driving up infections and hospitalizations throughout the country, at the same time the vaccination rates have stalled, we have received inquiries from at least 20 employers over the past few weeks who are giving consideration to adding health coverage surcharges for the unvaccinated as a way to drive up vaccination rates in their workforce, said Wade Simmons, Mercer's Regulatory Resources Group leader. All right, so Aircraft Sparky also said his last live chat anyways is, accept the stripping of your rights and liberties. I will accept the stripping of my rights and liberties. Anyway, Mercer isn't disclosing the names of companies working on the surcharges, but said the amount of, well, that's kind of dishonest of you, quite frankly. Mercer isn't disclosing the names of companies working on the surcharge, but said the amount of the surcharge being discussed with these employers is akin to the $20 to $50 a month charges companies already charge workers who smoke. The fuck? People are doing this already for people who smoke? Okay, I know what I said about freedom of association between employer and employee, but what business, seriously though, what business is it of employers to know if whether or not you smoke within the workforce? I mean, I don't think it's really their business to know if a person has been vaccinated or not. But even less so is it an employer's business to know if whether or not you smoke, of what you do in your fucking recreational time. I don't know. Maybe there's a bit of a consideration, like, for example, if an employer wants to know about whether or not you smoke weed and if you are, like, coming to the job inebriated. Well, actually, I don't know. There could be an argument to be made that you could possibly smoke weed, but at the same time arrive to work with the drug still slightly in your system, but you're not actually inebriated to where that you are ineffective as an employee at the job. And maybe that's what the ultimate determiner is for when it becomes an employer's business to know what you do in your personal life, is if how it is like physically affecting you as a worker on the workforce. But anyway, I kind of went on that tangent a little bit too long. T. Douglas McIntosh says, phew, I thought the ding was on my end and my laptop did something. LOL. Nope, it wasn't, McIntosh. It's fine. Common Sense Guy, how are you? I see that you got yourself a new profile picture. How are you doing? You about to reboot your YouTube channel here soon enough? It's to do with health insurance, DarkCon, says Common Sense Guy. Actually, There might be an interesting point to be made right there. I'll have to give it some further thought, but if a person, if the employer is like paying for your health insurance, and yet you're going to be misusing or even abusing your health insurance to where that it covers your recreational activities, your unhealthy recreational activities too, for that matter, like smoking, for example, then maybe there is an argument to be said as to how that becomes their business. But if they don't take insurance, then I'd say that it is definitely not the job of the employer, or excuse me, if they don't receive employer covered health insurance, then it's definitely not the job of the employer to know whether or not they smoke. Let me put it that way, at least. The smoking part, at least, says Common Sense Guy. All right, fair enough. I understood what you were on right there, Common Sense Guy. I did not think that you were referring to COVID-19 in regards of health insurance. But anyway, aside from a public health reason to encourage vaccination and keep workers and their families healthy, there is also a financial reason. Oh god, this guy is in fact arguing for the surcharging of people who don't take the vaccine. Fuck me. Okay, Forbes magazine does have their good writers within their website. But this isn't one of them. This one and the last one that we read are not really one of them. It's like if the front page of Forbes just recommends the rather liberal or left-leaning, it's like if they are put in front and center and recommending the left-leaning writers and articles from left-leaning writers on their front page, as opposed to any and at all right-leaning people, as opposed, or even more centrist. I'm trying to see Forbes, the apothecary. I'm trying to see if I can like find on Google any articles from Forbes magazine that has Avik Roy's name on it, because I remember Avik Roy. Avik Roy, who's like an Indian guy, and I mean Hindu Indian, by the way, who is a rather right-leaning guy when it comes to economic and healthcare breakdowns. It would be nice to know what his take is on the coronavirus. Like, Avik Roy is honestly Avik Roy is one of the more reliable writers at Forbes and contributors at Forbes, in my observation of his writings. In fact, he's the main reason as to how that I know for a fact that Bernie Sanders' health insurance is so fucking expensive for this country. Though that's not to say that he isn't critical of the right. Like the guy, I think he is more critical of the right than, say, the Sean Hannitys or the Rush Limbaughs, rest in peace, of the world. But nonetheless, Forbes' dishonesty and Avik Roy had a job on the... Sorry, I got distracted with reading something right there from Google. It says, oh, this is from Daily KOs. Of course it's from the left-leaning Daily KOs. Forbes' dishonesty and Avik Roy had a job on the Affordable Care Act. Forbes published an article by Avik Roy about the Affordable Care Act leading to healthcare premiums being more expensive for young. Well, many years later, it has been shown to raise people's premiums. Maybe that's something to be revisited sometime, of how expensive that insurance premiums have got over the years under Obamacare. Nonetheless, though, COVID-19 can lead to serious illness and an expensive hospital stay that costs the worker and company paid insurance, triggering premium increases as well. An essay in last week's New York Times outlined several examples of how COVID-19 can lead to higher costs in health insurance premiums from the unvaccinated. Getting hospitalized with COVID-19 in the United States typically generates huge bills. Dr. Elizabeth Rosenthal and Stanford University's Glenn Cramon wrote, citing examples that included a $104,000 bill for a 14-day hospitalization in Miami for an uninsured person. Though premium surcharges are only beginning to be considered, financial incentives are already being used by some employers. Mercer data from a survey in the last month of more than 300 employers shows only 10% provide a financial incentive, although 19% offer extra paid time off as a reward. Mercer said in a statement, some employers are now offering additional time off so employees can assist with their children's vaccinations. Benefits consultancy, the push by employers to get their workers vaccinated, is only intensifying as employees return to the office after 18 months of working remotely. This past week, a few big names, including Google and Facebook, announced plans to require all employees to get vaccinated for COVID-19 before returning to the office. Mercer's Simmons wrote in a column last week on the benefits firm's website, and while many employers are willing to take additional measures to increase vaccine levels, most employers continue to hold off on mandates because of potential employee relations issues that such a move might provoke. Like, maybe them completely quitting their job, especially if they're a rather skilled employee, and maybe even boycotting your business. Now, with the Delta variant driving up infections and hospitalizations throughout the country, at the same time that vaccination rates have stalled, health coverage surcharges for the unvaccinated are a tactic employers are reviewing as an alternative to a mandate. End of article. So yeah, it's getting pretty ugly out there, folks, with all these measures being done in response to COVID-19. Not just in the public sector, but in the private sector too, apparently. Like, it's one thing for you to mandate that everybody be wearing a face diaper whenever they step on your property, but now you're gonna start withholding money from people's paycheck just because they refuse to get the vaccine. That's even more frustrating. Anyway, this is another Washington Examiner article. Australia COVID-19 suppression threatened by Delta outbreak. Australia is currently battling a COVID-19 outbreak that may have been caused in part by the considerable success the country has had previously in stopping the coronavirus, one that shows the limits of its strict suppression strategy. Now, if we in the US here think that our governments have acted rather fascistic with their enforcement of lockdowns and whatnot, Australia has been considerably worse. I mean, if you go watching some of Baring's videos talking specifically about his own home country's lockdown measurements, it gets even uglier. Like mandating people to not only just stay out of business, but also to stay at home completely in some cases. Anyway, Australia registered nearly 4,000 COVID-19 cases in July, driven by the more infectious Delta variant. 4,000 COVID-19 cases in July? That's it? That's it? In a country of how many people that live there? Australia. Population 25.36 million. So, okay, yeah, the per capita is rather closer in comparison to the United States. A 4,000 COVID-19 case rise here in the US would be a drop in the bucket, but a 4,000 COVID-19 case raise in Australia would be a slightly bigger drop in the bucket. But nonetheless, 4,000, that's it. That's like that's still a pretty small number compared to 25 million people. Cases in July driven by the more, especially if you take into account how that's 4,000 in 1 month. 4,000 in July. Yeah. Kind of small when you think about it. Driven by the more infectious Delta variant. In the 6 months prior, cases only totaled 2,000, according to data from Australia's Department of Health. On Thursday, the second most populous city, Melbourne, entered a new lockdown following the states of South Australia, Victoria, and part of New South Wales, including the capital city of Sydney. The country now faces the prospect of much lengthier lockdowns than the ones that have previously been imposed. It will be our primary method of controlling outbreaks until at least 80% of adults are fully vaccinated, said Adrian Easterman, a professor of biostatistics at the University of South Australia. COVID-19 hospitalizations at record highs in several southern states amid Delta surge. The Australian population is largely vulnerable to COVID-19. To date, only about 15% of the population is fully vaccinated. The result of a vaccination campaign that has been beset with problems, and only a tiny share of the population has acquired protection through infection. So that 50% population being vaccinated, that would be at least 15% of people acquiring herd immunity. So who knows how much higher that the amount of people who acquired herd immunity actually is, if you take into account all the people who naturally gain the herd immunity as opposed to artificially through a vaccine. And only a tiny share of the population has acquired protection through infection, thanks to one of the best suppression efforts in the world. Yeah. So in other words, thanks to one of the most fascistic lockdown efforts in the world. The country has only seen about 35,000 confirmed cases. That's about 140 cases of COVID-19 per 100,000. By comparison, the United States has 10,768 cases per 100,000, while the United Kingdom has 8,907. We have had a population with virtually no natural immunity or vaccine-induced immunity, which makes it easy for the virus to cause outbreaks, said Raina McIntyre, a professor of infectious diseases at the University of New South Wales. Various policies contributed to Australia's success. In March 2020, the nation instituted a 2-week quarantine for all international arrivals, a policy it maintains to this day. It went into lockdown early in the pandemic, and state governments have continued to use short lockdowns to contain occasional outbreaks of the virus. It also has used a very effective test and trace system that has enabled officials to track down people exposed to the virus quickly. Oh, brother. In some cases, it has been using drones as well. 1984, anyone? However, the quarantine for international arrivals has leaks, resulting in cases of people infected with COVID-19 occasionally slipping through. That was less of a problem before the more contagious Delta variant emerged, which has reduced the effectiveness of the test and trace system. The Delta variant is much more contagious, and the contact tracers have found that by the time they identify contacts, 100% of household members are also infected, compared to about 30% last year, said McIntyre. They report that the incubation period appears to be much shorter, and that makes it more difficult to control. But it's also a lot easier to keep track of and for a person to know of when that they should stop associating with people. Let's keep that in mind as well, folks. There's like a give and take to every little factoid or effect that a specific strain of the virus might have. The government of New South Wales relied heavily on its test and trace system. New South Wales has always resisted lockdowns and instead has relied on its superb contact tracing team, said Easterman. This has worked extremely well for previous outbreaks, but has been a failure for the Delta variant because of the variant's incredibly fast transmission. It did eventually go into lockdown, but way too late, and nowhere near as strict as other places. As a result, it will probably have to stay in lockdown now well into September. Brother. I want to know the specifics of that lockdown. Like, are you restricting the economy to just quote unquote essential businesses being open and essential employees being the only ones allowed to go to work? Or are you just saying nobody's allowed to even leave the home? New South Wales reported its worst day of the pandemic on Thursday with a record 262 new cases. The success at containing the virus may have also made government officials complacent in procuring sufficient doses of the COVID-19 vaccine. We ordered vaccines very late, said Easterman. The thinking at the time was that since there wasn't much COVID in Australia, there really wasn't a hurry. The government didn't order vaccines from Pfizer until November 2020, much later than many other nations. As a result, Australia will not have a sufficient supply of Pfizer vaccines until late in 2021. Australia also ordered vaccines from the University of Melbourne, Novavax, and AstraZeneca, but the vaccine from the University of Melbourne proved unsuccessful, while the Novavax vaccine has been plagued by delays. The vaccination campaign in Australia was also slowed when, in April, a link was discovered between the AstraZeneca vaccine and blood clots. Oof. Yeah, I'm not... If you're going to be taking a vaccine, by the way, y'all, at least check the brand of vaccine that you're taking. So don't take AstraZeneca, and for that matter, don't take a 85 brand or 85 type of vaccines, anyways. As there was a Forbes magazine article that I had read a little bit earlier today, or maybe it was yesterday. I can't remember, but said that there was like a higher rate or a higher possibility of somebody contracting HIV if they take the 85 type of coronavirus vaccine. I might have to link that specific article down in the description box below, just for the sake of showing my receipts. But anyway. AstraZeneca was supposed to be the backbone of the Australian vaccine program, said Dr. Nancy Baxter, an epidemiologist and head of the School of Population and Global Health at the University of Melbourne. But then the risk of blood clots was identified and guidelines changed to have age restrictions for AstraZeneca. Outside of areas where there are active outbreaks, AstraZeneca is only recommended for those aged 60 and over. AstraZeneca is also a 2-dose vaccine, and the 2 doses are supposed to be administered 3 months apart. Excuse me, tripping over my own words. Australia didn't begin receiving the AstraZeneca vaccine until March. As a result, almost half of the 12 million doses in Australia are unused. End of article. So yeah, I think that's where I'm going to end it, folks. A nice 1 hour and 20-minute live stream meant to just mostly present information that I have come across on this issue. And no real response video or response segment within this live stream, so in the grand scheme of things, isn't too long. And you know, this is like the first ever live stream that I've been able to go the full show without having to remove the aesthetic getup, including the blackout American flag face mask here. But anyway, so for all of y'all who are still tuning in, if you have liked this commentary, again, I ask that you please hit the like button down below, as it'll help get that algorithm going, and maybe some people in the future will also watch this live stream as well. It's I think it's one of my less stuttery news streams, and one of the more to the point news streams as well. I mean, sure, yeah, there were times when that I had to rethink over some of my statements, but nonetheless, we're all flawed humans. We go saying stuff that we might be rethinking and changing our minds a little bit on eventually anyways. I mean, what can you say? We're only human. Hello, my name is Human. Hello, my name is Human. Anyway, that's an awesome song, by the way. Speaking of which, I haven't heard it on the radio for a while. But nonetheless, next episode of Strike Force, I don't know if I'll have anything to respond to technically, but I think I'll have us be reacting to a lol cow at least. And it'll be politically prevalent, the reaction to this particular lol cow. And I'm just going to leave it as a surprise, by the way, folks. So, and I guess final things I say right now. This show and this channel has been brought to you by patrons like you. Cat Chat and Mikhail the Stray Cat and the Conundrum are the first 3 patrons. And if you still listening, like the content a lot, so much to where that you want to provide monetary support, my Patreon link is down in the description box below. Consider on donating possibly. $1 donation will get you an immediate invite into my Discord server, and then $20 or more patronage will get you a response video of your choice. Whatever video you want to respond to me, doing an edited response video of your choice. God, I gotta learn how to word that statement, word that benefit a lot better. But anyway, enough of my rambling. Hope you all like the show, seriously. And I am Zach the Dark Conservatarian. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a good night. God bless.